some newsy stuff has occurred. The first one being Kevin Durant has signed a 2-year, $90 million extension with the Houston Rockets. This is about, I don't know, 30 million-ish, something in that ballpark, dollars, less than what he needed to take if he wanted to do a max. Now, like, I don't think Houston was ever going to do a max, but like, theoretically, he is taking 30 million or so less than what was on offer for him. It's interesting that this is the decision for Durant to lock in before the season starts with the Houston Rockets. I think that is probably what struck me most during, seeing that when I woke up this morning. The fact that they're just locking in already and saying, you know what, let's give this a bit of a runway. Let's see what happens. I mean, frankly, like, this is probably, look, like, I kind of refuse to put limits on Kevin Durant at a certain point, but this is probably his last big deal, right?
So
in all likelihood.
Real quick, I was just looking at that and it's like, well, he got the player option. So, in 27, 28, he can hit the market again. And I was like, at 39, like, what is that going to look? You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know that player option and getting back on the market that quickly is a huge, huge win. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know how much that plays into it.
Yeah. So this is at least 2 years of Kevin Durant with Houston. And then maybe, we'll see what happens. Right. I'm excited to see the Houston Rockets this year. They've been playing this weird mix of, like, sometimes it's Reed and the super big lineups. Sometimes it's just like this obscenely massive lineup with like Amen and KD and Jabari or like Intari. And then you have the two bigs with Alperin and Steven Adams. Like, I'm really interested to see how they go about, like, their main lineup. Like, do you close with the two big lineup? Do you start with the two big lineup? Is that just the lineup that you go to throughout the middle of the game because you feel like you can absolutely demolish the glass against certain lineups? I'm fascinated to see how Houston and Ime Udoka utilize what they have at their disposal now. Reed Shepherd had a massive game against Atlanta starters. That game will be broken down over on the Game Theory Substack, which, by the way, head on over to the Game Theory Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com, gametheorysamv.substack.com. Tomorrow or the next day, we will have a breakdown of Reed Shepherd's 29 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assist game where he had like 5 or 6 stocks against the Atlanta Hawks starters without any of Houston's starters in the mix. Like, he really kept that team in the mix and yet also showed a lot of the flaws that concern or could concern Rockets fans, particularly on defense, in my opinion. He really struggled to stay in front of anybody, in my opinion, in that game. So it's a good mix. It's a really interesting situation for the Rockets, but go to the Game Theory Substack. We will talk about all this over there in the next couple of days.
We will also have a VJ Etchcombe breakdown from his final preseason game with the Philadelphia 76ers. I submitted that to GMAC this afternoon, and I'm guessing that that'll go up in the next couple of days.
Yes, that will probably go up tomorrow then, if you submitted that. And then we'll do Read on Tuesday morning. So that makes sense. That works for me. Go to the Game Theory Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. $6 a month. You will get a ton of video breakdowns, a ton of video stuff, and a lot of really, really fun content over there. Kevin Durant. I think this makes sense on some level. I am just like a little bit surprised they decided to lock in like immediately. Maybe not surprised, but I find it interesting they decided to lock in immediately. But also, like, it feels like this is a situation where Kevin Durant was happy to go there. The Rockets were happy to acquire him. Let's see what this is for 2 years and kind of go from there.
Yeah, it took me by surprise just because of where that number is. So looking at 26, 27 cap hits, this has Kevin Durant already at 28. And so, like, he's barely going to crack the top 30, depending on how some other contracts play out next season. I just think that's really good value. Like, if he would have taken the full number and we were talking about him being at 60 million or around 60 million or whatever for the next 2 years, I might have been a little bit more like, Yeah, I realized they made this. I just feel like Houston did so well in this, Sam, in terms of what they gave up to acquire him. Now the contract that they've given him, and just it really feeding a need for this team to go and be contenders this year in the Western Conference. Like wherever that is now with Fred VanVleet out, like that's not something they could have foreseen or whatever. But I'll tell you this, having Kevin Durant in play sure makes it a little bit more manageable. Having a veteran like that, obviously not nearly the same type of players, archetype, whatever. But I just think Houston has done really well all around in terms of what they gave up to go get him meeting the needs, filling the needs of this team, and then this contract as well. I mean, you have to assume he's going to be huge for them this year. You cut $11 million off his salary for next year, where I think you probably still assume he's good. And then, maybe there's 1 year, maybe, we'd be going into age 39 season at 46.7, but I don't know. I'm all about this from the Houston Rockets side. And if KD's happy, he's made a ton of money. Like if there's ever a guy to, give a little back or whatever, I feel like Durant's probably going to be okay.
Yeah. I mean, just not even with endorsements, this deal will take Kevin Durant over $500 million in his career at this point, which is just so awesome. Like good for KD to get that kind of money locked in. I think even this year would have gotten him over 50, gotten him over 500. I think that will close him in on 600 these 2 years and 90 million. So good for Kevin Durant. Yeah, I mean, look, Kevin Durant is still an absolute savage on the court. And the other thing I will say is like, look, if you look at like the big 6-year sample of Kevin Durant, there is a lot of time missed on the court, right? Didn't play in 29-20, 35 games in 21-22, 55 in 21 or in 2021, 55 in 21-22, 47 in 2022-23. But over the last 2 years, has actually played 137 out of a combined 164 possible games. Not bad, right? I think you should go into a season expecting that Kevin Durant's going to miss 15 to 20 games, given that he's 37 to 38, potentially 39 years old throughout the course of this contract. But man, when this dude's on the court, he's still unbelievable at basketball. Like he averaged 27 points, shooting 53, 43, 84 last year. His last 2 years in Phoenix, where everyone, for whatever reason, thought he was the problem in Phoenix when there were just so many other roster building problems in Phoenix that I truly don't know how you could blame Kevin Durant for any of this. 27 points, 53% from the field, 42% from three, 85% from the line, 6 assists, or 6 rebounds, 5 assists, still blocking over a shot per game. An unbelievable basketball player. He is an unbelievable basketball player who somehow remains damn near like, look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you Kevin Durant is as good as he was when he won MVP back in 2014, but he is still damn near the top of the league. Like he is still an all NBA top 15 player in the league at 37, which is completely bonkers.
Yeah, and like somewhat insulated in terms of what there'll be lineups where he's the 4th best defensive player, the 4th most important defensive player, maybe the 5th. I mean,
Bryce, there were times last year where I thought he was like holding up Phoenix's defense.
Correct. And he just doesn't have to do that in Houston. He should never, ever have to guard the best player on the other team unless it's a switch, right? But in half-court offense, when everybody's set, you would be hard-pressed to construct a lineup where he has to defend the other team's best player whenever the action starts. He can kind of just do things that I think you would want Kevin Durant doing at age 37, which is play against the other team's worst player and kind of roam around and contest, go grab a rebound, lead the break. Yeah. And then offensively, just be a play finisher or ISO in the mid-range and let a min create, let Alprin create. Like, I'm not trying to act like there's not going to be an offensive load on him, because there is, right? Like, he has to be their big time scorer, but there are creators at least.
He's the guy that they needed when you need a shot with 7 seconds left on the shot clock. Correct. And you need somebody to go bail you out, right? And that's something this team has lacked the last couple of years. It's typically been one of Fred, Jalen, or Şengün doing that. And there's just a drastic difference with KD doing that. KD can get to that mid-range jumper. He can get to that spot at the elbow, on the baseline, basically whenever he wants. And that shot is probably somewhere between, even when it's most contested, probably a 45% look, right? And with Jalen Green, with Fred, it's probably like a 30% look, right? So there are just massive, massive differences in terms of what they can do in terms of creating late shot clock offense, which I think is something that Houston needed in big moments. On top of that, man, like, this team loves to run that two big lineup.
Yep.
And when they do that, they run zone, right? Kevin Durant is now roaming like the back line of a zone, and is going to like have to go up, and like the way the NBA zones work, a lot of the time when you run that 2-3, the corner man has to be responsible for the wing and the corner, right? What's better than having 6'11" with like a 7'5" wingspan, Kevin Durant roaming from like the wing to the corner on the weak side in like a 2-3 zone, right? So, man, I just think the world of what this fit could look like. Now, I liked it a lot more when I knew that Fred was there, and I knew that they were going to be getting like really strong point guard play who could initiate offense and everything. But I've loved the way that Amen has looked. I think that, you know, obviously Reed has had ups and downs in preseason, but he's finishing on an incredible high against the Atlanta Hawks on the offensive end. I love the idea of like Reed in a zone, kind of, if you're going to play those two big lineups.
Obviously, Amen can cover ground. Jabari can cover ground.
Yeah, you just have so much insulated backline there. And then Reed is like kind of flying around with his hand-eye coordination, getting active and getting aggressive. Like, again, like what he did to the Hawks with his hands, unbelievable, in my opinion, in that final preseason game that we just had. So, man, I really like this idea of what the Rockets can be. I'm still a little bit worried about like the overall offensive execution. I want to see what it looks like throughout the regular season, but it has a chance to really work. Like, if Amen and Reed really step up, they will like totally lose. The Fred thing like doesn't matter, right? Because both those guys are so talented that their ceiling on a, you know, night by night basis is higher than Fred's. It's just that Fred's floor is higher than those guys in terms of getting your team into your offense, executing on defense, everything like that. But I don't know, like maybe you can mix and match at the point with Amen and Reed, and like, you know, money ball it sort of, where in the aggregate, those two guys, you know, if you ride hot hand every night, can outperform what you got from Fred, is maybe the way to put it.
Yeah, and I will just also say with like the two big lineup on the offensive end, I understand some of the spacing concerns. Like, I think that's real with Steven Adams. Şengün can at least play in the mid-range, and I think having a good passer like Şengün helps it. But specifically to Durant, if you look at his, you know, percentage of field goal attempts, like 3/4 of his field goal attempts come from 10 feet or further out anyway. Like, it's not like he never gets to the rim, but that's not a huge part of his game. You can just look the trend throughout his career. And so I don't think that that's going to completely like mitigate what he is as a scorer, right? Like, I think Durant's going to be perfectly fine. If the team wants to pack the paint, that's fine. He just won't, you know, he's just going to shoot from the mid range or the 3-point line or whatever. Right. So I think he'll be fine individually, like bigger picture, like can Amen pressure the paint and then spray it out and some of that stuff? Sure. But for Durant specifically, I think this is what makes him fit so well is it's okay if the lane is clogged, because where he wants to shoot from anyway, that doesn't matter. The way he wants to get a lot of his buckets.
Yeah. I mean, look, like maybe I'm just like drinking the preseason Kool-Aid and all this stuff and I'm wrong, but yeah, I kind of wish. I think this team's going to be very good in the regular season is where I'm at. In the postseason, like I do want to see what Reed and Amen can do, like getting easy shots for everybody else, right? Şengün is the other guy like we barely talked about. Şengün's been awesome in the preseason. Yes. Like his passing and playmaking has been unbelievable. And I think defensively he continues to make strides. But like, to me, you know, it is going to come down offensive execution wise on some level to how ready are Reed and Amen to be able to handle the load? I think in the regular season, that's probably going to matter a little bit less because they're going to pummel teams on the offensive glass. KD's going to be there to bail them out when necessary. And defensively, they're going to be like a top 5 defense at the end of the day. So I think this team probably wins 50 games is where I'm at now. But in the postseason, like we'll see what it looks like.
Sure.
In my opinion. And like, you know, that execution efficiency side of the equation, I could feel great about it by the time February, March rolls around. I could feel a little bit questionable about it. It's kind of where I'm at. We'll see. But I think this team's going to win a lot of regular season games is where I'm at.